Right. Well, I want to thank everyone for tuning in to another episode of the Private Practice Elevation Podcast. I'm excited to chat with Michael Silva today, and we'll be talking about how do you build your private practice without relying on insurance so heavily or low-paying insurance contracts. So, Michael, how are you doing? Thanks so much for joining me.
I'm doing great. Enjoying a rainy day here in Rhode Island.
Yeah, it's raining here too, actually. It's been raining
Probably not
last
quite
two
as hot
days.
as it is down there, is it?
What's that?
Probably not quite as hot as it is down in Atlanta.
No, probably not. I wish I was in Rhode Island this summer.
Come join us. It's a beautiful place to be.
Yeah, I've only been once. I only been once. Right before my oldest son was born, we kind of did a baby moon sort of thing, and we went up to Mystic, Connecticut, and hopped over to Newport and
Oh, perfect.
hiked along the coast there and looked at all the mansions and all that stuff. It was awesome. Great trip.
I do not live in that mansion built in Newport, but I enjoy it as well.
Awesome, awesome. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I'm excited to hear more about, you and your journey, because a lot of the folks that I consult with and who listen to this podcast are mental health therapists, building private practice. But we certainly have a lot of overlap with physical therapists and even chiropractors, and we've certainly worked with those folks. So I'm excited to hear more about your journey. So why don't you just, tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and your story.
Sure. So I'm a physical therapist. I graduated in 1998, a long time ago. And I worked in corporate healthcare for a while. Back 2 years into my career, I didn't know the term back then, but I was experiencing burnout
Mm,
already. Not enjoying who I was working with, what I was doing, where I was doing it, and almost left the world of physical therapy and became a medical device salesperson.
mm.
Almost became one. And then had a talk with my wife, who's also a physical therapist. And we decided that it's not that I didn't like helping people and being a therapist. I wanted to do it my way. I thought there was a better way.
Yeah.
So I launched my own business in 2003. I turned 30, had my first child, and became fully responsible for the financial security of my family, which was which was excuse me, which was a little bit scary.
Yeah.
But I knew if I didn't do that, I was going to leave the profession anyway.
Mm,
So we went all in and started a business which was called Foundation Performance Sports Medicine. And I started that as a cash-based service. And I worked with, really fitness-minded, health-conscious patients, clients. When I started, I traveled to people's homes. I met them at their gyms, at their golf clubs. I just was driving all over this part of New England, creating a following, and then got a brick and mortar practice, brought everyone in, was still cash-based. And we were doing okay. And this was before cash-based, at least in physical therapy, cash-based is over the past 5 years, it's like everyone wants to get there so they don't have to deal with the insurances.
yeah.
Back then, people thought I was crazy for doing it because no one was really doing it. It was either
Hmm.
personal training or physical therapy going through insurance. So having that mix was risky, but it worked. And we were doing great. And then my wife said to me one day, 'cause she did all the books because she was home with our child. And she's like, we're turning a lot of business away because there's certain people that don't have the resources to pay for it. We're doing okay, but we could be doing better.
Hmm.
Why don't we just accept insurances? So we did, and that was probably about 2004, 2005-ish, I would say. And then we started accepting insurances, and then the floodgates opened.
Hmm.
We got everyone and everyone's brother and everyone coming in and really explode the business, which was great. But then also, my wife and I are both exercise physiologists and come from a really wellness fitness background, both former athletes. We started getting populations that weren't as motivated, and it wasn't the practice I was envisioning.
Right.
Um, and then also looking at the numbers, I'm assuming it's similar in all forms of therapy, chiropractic, physical therapy, psychotherapy, everything. The reimbursement was getting cut. What we were getting paid, I knew at that point I was starting to gain. I used a business coach myself at this point, and I started to realize, oh, I knew what every slot on my calendar was worth, like what it cost me to do that. And then I knew
Yeah.
what the insurance would reimburse me. And I made a tough decision to cut out any insurance company. I get rid of the contract that wasn't paying me at least enough to cover my expenses.
Yeah.
I can't be in business to lose money. So we kind of opened it, the floodgates came in, and then we slowly streamed down. And then what happened over the next 15 years after that point, we grew a practice. I was about to open my fourth office. In my 20th year, I sold, but we grew this practice. And I tell people, and I've had my staff tell me that we had the best patients in the world because we've really focused on the really motivated, health conscious client, and that was our person, right?
Hmm.
So if a stroke patient came in, an elderly stroke patient, we weren't the clinic for them.
Yeah.
Even if it was, excuse me, I apologize for the coughing.
No problem.
Um, so even if it was like a family member and I was honored to that they wanted me to work with their father who just had a stroke, I would have the conversation with them like, we're a sports medicine practice. My whole career has been a sports medicine. I'm not the guy for your dad, but I do have a
Yeah.
referral for you. So we had
Hmm.
referrals to send those people out that weren't ours. Then we grew the practice and I was about to open my fourth office in 2021 when I decided I just need to do something different. So I sold and exited clinical care. And now I'm doing business coaching and consulting and educating and trying to help other young therapists do what I did.
Wow.
I
Awesome.
hope that wasn't too long of a story, but
No, not at
it's been a
all.
lot of years.
No, not at all. Yeah, you got obviously many years of experience. No, that's definitely not a long story. I want to definitely like dig in a little bit more, because there's so much to pull out of there. I loved we kind of glossed over a lot that we got to go back into here.
Sure.
Is that, I love what you said about kind of like knowing your numbers, first of all, like knowing what your work was worth so that you could identify, at least starting out, like who are those contracts, those insurance contracts that just aren't, they're not going to serve you and your business.
Right.
So I think that's something that people don't always pay attention to, at least when they're first starting out. They take everybody and their mother and brother and try to get
Yes.
established. But at some point you have to start understanding, what is a client worth, and what were some of, or do you have any tips on like how to kind of establish that? Like, what is each client worth to you?
So if we're talking numbers wise, that's a that's a moving target depending on how many staff members I had at that time. So it's like a
Yeah.
snapshot. But I had a great bookkeeper and we would go through the numbers and we knew, let's just say, for example, that every 30-minute slot that we had cost me $58. That's to pay everyone, to pay my overhead, all the expenses. So if I had insurance companies coming in and some of them were paying less than that for the services, which I still get shocked at, some
Mm.
of them coming in,
Wow.
the state plans were paying $35.
Wow.
So I just stopped accepting state plans and other low paying plans. So typically, if they were in the 60s or lower, I wouldn't accept them.
Hmm.
So when I did that, I was nervous because, like you said, when you start, you want to take everyone. I just need
Right.
revenue, 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 which I guess I get it because I did it.
Yeah.
But I'm glad earlier on I started to chop off because we worked less hard and the numbers in our bottom line was better when we started
Hmm.
not accepting those. Not that those people didn't need therapy. Like I felt bad at first because I'm here to serve, but I'm
Right.
also here to lose my shirt. Like I can't lose
Yeah.
money in business.
Yeah.
And I always use the mantra that like profit is like oxygen. Oxygen is not the meaning of life, but it's necessary for life.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like we made a good living as owners. My wife and I wasn't making decisions for profit, like grow, 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 grow. But I needed it because I wanted to pay my staff more. So
Yeah.
making those decisions is always hard between clinical care. Who do you serve? Who do you don't?
Yeah.
Um, I probably lost sleep a few nights making those decisions. Um,
Yeah.
but when I
Yeah.
knew that number, if they wouldn't renegotiate with me to come up so I could provide the services, we had great conversations with these insurance companies. I just said, okay, we'll cancel the contract. And we had tough conversations with our patients, but it worked out and we had referrals. Like, I know we can't do this, but
Yeah.
this clinic can. So we always had referral sources for people that weren't our clients, so we could at least serve them in that way. As
Yeah. Hmm.
I never liked when people called and I just shunned them away. We never did that. We always had a number or a name for them to call.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's very important. And for anyone who's looking for help and support, we want to make sure that they get it. And that's also just a great way to serve people too. Like even though you're not working with them, and they see you as helpful, and they might think of you next time that maybe their friend, family member needs what you offer,
Exactly. Exactly. And that happened countless times
Yeah.
when my front desk was like listened to their story, was really empathetic and
Yeah.
and felt like knew their need, and because we couldn't fill it, we immediately had referrals for them and they were really appreciative. And then all of a sudden we get a referral from them. Oh, so
Yeah.
and so who we're like, were they a patient? No, they came. You guys couldn't see them, but you sent them to someone, and they were really appreciative, and they said you guys were nice. So that's why I'm here.
That's great. Great
It all comes
customer
back. Yeah.
customer care and experience. It really is impactful.
Right.
Well, I want to know a little bit more about, that process, so like the floodgates are open, you're realizing, okay, not everybody, not all these contracts, these insurance contracts are profitable. You're also realizing that there are certain types of clients that you don't really want to work with or you don't want to be known for. What
Right.
was the process of discovering that? Like, oh, we don't really want to work with older stroke patients. We really want to focus on the athletes. Like, tell me about, like, take me back to that time. Like, how did that feel? How did you start that process of um focusing in?
So it started with my personal passion, obviously being the starter of the business. And at one point, I was the everything in the business. Um, I fell into a niche with the running world. Um, that's I'll do a quick story, but when I
Yeah.
started the business, I was a cash-based orthopedic physical therapist, and I have an exercise physiology background. So I was doing a lot of personal training as well. My wife was just getting back into running. We had our small child. She was at the local running store, told them about me. One of the runners at the store came to work with me. And thank God I did a good job with him. He sent me one
Mhm.
of his friends who just happened to be a future Olympian for Ireland, started working with him, did
Wow.
well with him. He sent me someone who was at that point ranked the fastest runner of all of Europe. So I started working with him. So I became this running therapist. And that wasn't my original vision. I wanted to work with athletes, but I was an ex-football player meathead. I used to like weigh 200 pounds and bench press 300. It was like running miles was not in my vocabulary. So I fell into that niche and I really liked it because it's a really motivated group. They'll do whatever you tell them. They
Hmm.
showed up for their appointments. They wouldn't cancel. They wanted to get better. Some people in the physical therapy world didn't like working with runners because they called them stubborn. And I'm like, no,
Mm.
they're not stubborn. I'm like, you just have to know how to talk to them and you can channel that energy in the right way. And they're the best patients in the world. And that's
Wow.
what ended up happening. So I saw, that's a slightly separate topic. People say you like follow your passion and you'll
Hmm.
be successful. Well, I started to become successful in that niche, and I became passionate about it. Right.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
became, it fed my ego. People knew me as the guy to go to.
Yeah.
It filled our bank accounts. Like it was
Hmm.
everything was good, and I enjoyed it, and it was a really good clientele. So that's how we made the decision to go towards that. So our clinics, we didn't get a lot of Medicare patients. We did get some, and the ones we typically got were the more active, older people. Some of them are
Right.
running miles, and some of my younger ones. But we
Yeah.
we just slowly became known as a place that people went to stay active, to stay fit, to stay running.
Hmm.
And what I realized in looking at the numbers is these people don't cancel. These
Hmm.
people show up for their appointments.
Yeah.
So it was just a win-win-win. Like we enjoyed working with them. They were positive, motivated people. They showed up for their appointments. We were doing a good job with it. And then all the staff I hired at that point as well they need to be passionate with working that clientele as well. So I
Right.
mentored all the new staff. There was certain continuing education that I required that they get in order to fill the niche that we were treating. If someone wanted to work with me and they had a neuro background, I wouldn't bring them in, even though they were really skilled because we're not a neuro place. So just kind of like it all just kind of fell into that path, and I just saw, not knowingly, I wasn't conscious of it, but there was this opportunity to grow a
Yeah.
business and
Yeah.
enjoy work and to work with really motivated people. So that's what we did, and I have had so many staff members tell me that like you have the best patients in the world, and they also said, I never get a break in my schedule because no one ever cancels. Like we had the lowest cancellation rate out of any clinic that I know, and this is something I want to tattoo on my
Wow.
shoulder. I'm so proud of it.
Yeah.
Cancellation rate was almost never above 4%, which
Wow.
in I don't know how much you know about outpatient physical therapy cancellation rates, but they can be as high as 15-20%.
I bet. Yeah.
So yeah, but so we had um, good paying contracts and we had good paying patients. They paid their copays and they showed up. So financially, we had a great foundation.
Yeah.
And we just kind of went with that.
Hmm. Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. How that's kind of like, I love those stories. Like life kind of
Right.
just like unfurls around you and yeah, and kind of you just kind of look for those signs along the way of just what's working and what does excite you. And well, that's kind of similar to my own journey. I mean, my wife is the therapist. I'm not the therapist. She's got the mental health private practice, and I helped her with her online marketing. And I was like, well, maybe I could do the same for others, and it just kind of you learn along the way, kind of as you go.
So do you work mostly mental health? Do you do other healthcare providers as well?
Mostly mental health. I'd say 95% of the work that we've done. I mean, I've been doing this since 2016. So I started as a freelance front end website developer, creator, that sort of thing. So it's just me. And so we've done a few physical therapy websites, a couple of chiropractic websites, but I'd say the abundance is mental health therapists in private practice.
Nice. Yeah, and
Yeah.
they typically, as healthcare workers and clinicians, aren't good at what you do. We need people like you to help us.
Yeah, that's why we exist. We do what we love to do, so everyone else can do what they love to do. Exactly. It's all
You know
about
what?
passion.
I learned throughout business that we have these professionals for for a reason. Like I
Mhm.
tried to do my own website, failed miserably. I tried to do my own bookkeeping, failed miserably. I tried to do so many things, and then I realized just through experience, like, okay, let me do what I do, what
Yeah.
I'm good, and pay people to do the other parts of it because
Yeah,
it's just,
exactly.
well, it's a win-win and it's a better product at the end.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm learning that as well, kind of as I grow my team. Like I said, I started out as a freelancer, did everything myself, and realized like, wow, if I really want to provide a great service to people, I need to hire somebody to do the development, to do the project management, to do SEO, all this stuff, because if they are focused on what they love to do, even within my business, then everybody wins because everybody gets a better service, a better result. So yeah, that's a little lesson buried in there is look for those
Right.
people who can help you get to where you want to go, better than you can yourself.
It always happens with a team. You get
Yeah,
so much better. Yeah, for sure.
yeah. Well, why don't you tell us just a little bit? I'm curious just to hear, like, what would your advice be about, somebody who is in that stage right now where they're trying to build. And I talk to a lot of folks who are like, yeah, I really want to get to an all private pay cash practice, but I have to rely on these insurance panels, or if I if I drop these insurance panels, how are people going to find me? Stuff like that. Or what are some tips, advice, encouragement that you could have for those types of folks?
Sure. So I think that's the route some people do have to take, right? They need to bring in revenue. They can't just sit around and hope. And also, I think depending on the age and the experience of the therapist, and I say therapist, mental, physical, I think it's pretty much the same throughout what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Like if you were entrenched in your community, like let's say here, I'm in Barrington, Rhode Island. If you grew up in Barrington, Rhode Island, you raised your family in Barrington, Rhode Island, you started your practice in Barrington, Rhode Island, everyone knew you, it's probably much easier for you to veer off and work your way off of health insurance or even just start a business without it because you already have a
Yeah.
network of people, friends and family, neighbors, referral
Yeah.
sources. If you're going to a new area and you're brand new, no one knows you, and you look like you're 18, and all of a sudden now you want to charge $250 for an hour session, you might have a hard time because no one knows who you are.
Right.
So in that first scenario, if someone's end goal is to get to cash base and they have that network and they have roots in the community already, I think you can get away with that earlier on in your career, as long as you're providing value. One
Right.
thing that I always teach is you have to over provide. Like
hmm
if you're charging $250, you give them $300 worth of, if not $500 worth of value. Like if you're
hmm
doing that and people have emotional connection with you and they see the value, they're going to pay for it.
Right.
You don't just throw a high ticket on there and give them crap. Sorry for foul language. I don't know if I can say that.
Crap is
You know,
fine.
right?
Say
You
whatever
don't
you want.
sell them. Right, good. You don't sell them crap and just put a high ticket item and think you're going to grow a business, right? So everything
Yeah.
is based on that value you're providing, and even taking two steps back, kind of like what we figured out, like who is your client? Like
hmm
not everyone is not your client. I'm a big believer in having a specialty niching down to actually grow your business.
hmm
So like we became the place where runners went, but we didn't only treat runners. But when people knew we worked with a higher like fitness level type of clients, then we
Yeah.
started to get CrossFitters and ballet dancers and people, we just became known as the active type of place. And that's what filled our cup. And everyone I hired, that's what they wanted to treat. So we had job fulfillment. We had great energy. We were motivated. We didn't have burnout because we were working with great people. Um, I know I went off the topic there. So finding out who your avatar is, I think, is
Yeah.
key.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, you might have to start with health insurances, but I encourage people to right away know your numbers. Like you need to know your bottom line, where you're at, what every treatment slot is costing you,
Yeah.
what are you getting reimbursed for it, and include all the costs that go into running a business. And when you know that, then slowly start to weed out the insurances that aren't either providing you the patients, because being in contract with an insurance company doesn't automatically mean they're going to send you people.
Yeah.
Very rarely do people come because they said, "Oh, you're on my insurance company list." They came
Hmm.
because their friend, their brother, their coach, their doctor knew of us, and that's how they got there. So I wouldn't use the insurance contract as a way to get business, but it's a
Yeah.
way to get reimbursed for your business.
Hmm.
And I would say if you feel like you need to do that because you're not entrenched in your community and you just need to bring people in, start there, know your numbers, start to chop away the ones that you're losing money on, work your way up, find a niche or find a specialty or an area that you're really passionate about working. Like if you're in mental health, let's say you love working with people going through a divorce, helping couples navigate that. Like
Hmm.
become the person that if I
Yeah.
know my friends going through a divorce, I know this person is the person you want to talk to. That's what they do. That's their specialty. I think if you do that, there's less marketing involved after you get the ball rolling. And it's again, I talk about the burnout. Like if you're passionate and you've got the niche you're trying to work on, work becomes a little less stressful, right? It's
Yeah.
just you enjoy it more. I
Yeah.
hope I answered the question in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a few great tips in there, and I kind of want to build on that too. You know, when you talk about niching down and kind of like what we see, you know, as we're helping people with their websites and their visibility online, is that when I talk about search engine optimization, kind of getting found online, I always compare it to investing. You know, you can always invest more money, but you can't get back the time that you had your money into an investment. So it's the same sort of thing with SEO. Like if you are writing content to focus in on those niches, those passion clients that you have, and that's out there on your website, that's doing you work to get you visibility and rankings of keywords and getting traffic to your website. So, you know, if all of a sudden you start to think, okay, I really want to drop insurance, I want to go to cash, but you know, I do get a lot of people who are going with me just because I take insurance. Well, it's going to be harder once you turn off that faucet, you know. So
Right.
I always encourage people as early as you can, start writing on your website, start sharing your expertise, so you become like what you said, Michael, like that go-to person in those different
Right.
spaces. So you can really do that with your content, and that could even help you further understand those ideal clients as you're writing about them, you're writing about their challenges, you're really kind of getting into their head and into their space as you're writing and answering questions that they might have.
Right, right, absolutely. And this is where your expertise come in. You know how to guide someone to maximize the SEO and what, blogging and all those things, which is
Yeah,
great. I never had that help when I started. Maybe I would have
hmm,
done it because I do enjoy writing. I'm writing a book right now, but
cool.
yeah, I didn't see the value in it when I was younger.
Yeah.
But also when I started, my ego got in the way. Like most young, especially males, like I
Yeah.
became the man in the running world, and it was all about me and my building my reputation. And then I realized, yeah, like we talked about earlier, I can't do this on my own.
Hmm.
Like I
Right.
need a team. I got to make it about them. So I learned it early on, thankfully. I think a lot of help from my wife who calmed me down and brought me back down to reality. And also, by the way, she'll take credit for the success of our business because if it wasn't for her buying her running sneakers at the running store,
That's right.
so all the success I had in the running world, she takes credit for, and I'll give it to her.
There you go. That's awesome. Awesome. Well, are there any final thoughts, words of wisdom that you want to give folks on this topic?
Yeah, so going back to the cash base, excuse me. I think if you know who you want to serve, you're providing great value, you're providing a great client experience. I think in healthcare, we don't always think about the client experience as much. And a
Hmm.
lot of what the coaching I'm doing now with my clients is building a better client experience. And I like to call it a customer experience now because patients nowadays are spending so much money. They're high paying customers.
Hmm.
And we need to start looking at them as high paying customers, not an insurance based patient.
Yeah.
So I think providing that amazing customer experience from the website. Make sure the website represents you and it's appealing and it's easy to use and there's very little friction to book an appointment or get a contact over to you.
Yeah.
Even if you're a solopreneur in a tiny office, make sure it's a pleasing experience when you get into the office. Never mind the communication with your patient. I think building that ultimate customer experience to the target audience that you want and over delivering. None of these things really cost much money. It's just putting
Hmm.
some effort and trying to put yourself in your client's shoes. I think anyone will be successful if you kind of prioritize those things, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Michael, for your time and for sharing your wisdom and your story. Enjoyed learning about you. And where can people find you online if they want to learn a little bit more and see what resources you have?
Yeah, sure. So, LinkedIn, I'm not super active social media wise, but LinkedIn is probably the number one place there. You can just look up Michael J. Silva. I have a personal page and a business page there. My website is michaeljsilva.com. And I do have I don't know if I sent it to you already, but I do have an ebook which goes over some of the things I'm talking about, like the foundation, the 5 pillars to building a
Great.
good practice. And I think it would work for healthcare and any type of practice. If I haven't given it to you, I'll be more than happy to send it your way and you can give it to all your listeners.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it goes over what I call the 5 O's. And I think it's a great way to start if you're either starting a practice or if you're realizing your practice might not be providing what it needs to for you. I like it. It's a 10,000 foot view.
Great.
So those are my contacts. I'll be more than happy to share that with your listeners. And if anyone wants to talk more through those 3 avenues, they can get a hold of me.
Awesome. Yes, yes. Send me that resource. We will put that in the show notes for this episode.
Perfect.
So you can all head over there. I think this is episode 169. So privatepracticeelevation.com/169. And we'll put those links in there as well as that resource that you could get your hands on. Well, thanks so
Yeah,
much
I'll
for your
send it right
time,
over.
Michael. It was really great meeting you and chatting with you.
Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate you doing this.